Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karen seemed to think that everybody on Earth is an employee and meant to serve them. And in today's episode, a smug, power-tripping CEO demands OP make him a cup of coffee, and it only gets worse from there. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened about a month ago, and at this point, I wasn't sure if it was worth sharing, but what the heck. Here we go. The background is, I work at a child care center, and we have shirts that we wear at work that have the company name on the shirt. It's very clear and very obvious what company it is. One day, one of the families I babysit for asked if I could pick up their kids and take them home, as the mom had a late meeting and she would miss the pickup time cutoff. The younger child was at my center, in my class, and after getting the proper permission from the director, we head off to pick up the older sister at the school. The sister went to a pre-kindergarten program that was attached to a highly prestigious elementary school, so this place was very uppity. I'd been there a few times before for pickup like this, so the staff knew who I was. On the days that I did have to pick up the sister, she was usually the last one, as I got there right before closing. This particular day, though, there was another little girl. While the older sister was collecting her things and putting her jacket on, I was holding the younger toddler, and I was chatting with the remaining staff member. And then the other girl's dad comes in. The guy seemed rushed and annoyed that the girl wasn't getting her items together quick enough, like the other one was. He then snapped and said, "Why isn't my kid ready to go?" He was looking right at me while I stayed silent. Not the right thing to do for him, as I found out. He then says, "Hello, I'm talking to you." And the guy actually snapped. He snapped his fingers in my face, saying, "Why is that kid ready and mine isn't? This is favoritism." Of course, I tell him, "Sir, I don't work here." And the guy didn't like the answer, and may I remind everyone that the actual staff member was standing right next to me, and she was shocked as well. My shirt was also very visible, showing my center's logo and name, which is very different than the schools we were at. The guy then says to me, "Oh, don't you give me that. I don't care if you're off the clock or whatever. You don't want to admit you have favorites at this school." And this is the point the teacher finally steps in and says, "Dan, she's picking up this other girl. She doesn't work here at all." And he responds, "She can't pick up if she's an employee. That's against the law." The guy just looked disgusted at me. And by the way, it's not against the law whatsoever, even if I did work there. I then tried to make a joke to lighten the mood, saying, "Then it's a good thing I'm not an employee." At this point, the older sister was ready to go, and I just wanted to get out of there. So we say goodbye to the teacher and try to leave, and the guy screams and says, "Where are you going? You can't take the kids. You work here." I just walked down the hall and yelled back, "No, I don't." But the guy just kept yelling at me as I exit the building, and he followed me to my car while I had these two kids with me. The guy continued yelling at me for another minute straight until I got the kids strapped up and got into the driver's seat and closed the door. I was so flustered and frustrated after that we took a timeout in the car, and I sat and played some of the music I had saved on my phone for the kids. Now I know it's not the most exciting story, but I thought somebody might get a kick out of me encountering a wild Karen. Yeah, that guy was definitely off his rocker, not to mention disgustingly entitled. Like, not only did he snap his fingers in Opie's face like she was a lowly servant or something, the guy followed her, someone who's with two kids, to her car to keep screaming at her. Like, for what? I just hope someone filed a complaint against the guy and banned him from being able to pick up his kid, because the guy seems super unhinged, right? And this person comments what I'm sure a lot of you are thinking right now. This person says, "Snap your fingers in my face? That's a good way to lose them, Stumpy. Ain't that right?" So although this didn't happen in a retail setting, I believe it fits, and I hope you enjoy this story. One recent afternoon, I was home alone. My preteens, aged 11 and 12, had gone to play with some friends at the park across the street. I'd been up late the night before, so I was running on fumes. I fell asleep for a lovely minute in the living room, only to be woken moments later by an angry loud banging on my front door. I groggily answer it, and it's a neighbor I vaguely recognize, like she lives 7 houses down from me. The woman's wearing yoga pants, pushing a jogging stroller with a baby inside, and she has a stellar resting bitch face. She says to me, "You have the blonde kids, right?" I say to her, "No, my kids have dark hair just like me," wondering what the F she wants at this point. She then says, "Well, you know them, right? I see them here all the time." I tell her, "Yes, I know them. They're my kids' friends." She then demands, "Well, where do they live?" Now, I'm not about to go out giving private information to strangers, and I can't remember their exact address anyway. So I say, "They live down the street. I don't know." The woman says, "Well, anyways, I just want to let you know that I've seen those children on multiple occasions cross the street without looking both ways. Do something about it." At this point, I'm a little bit annoyed at this woman, and I say, "Okay, but they're not my kids." She then says, "Well, I see them here all the time. What are you going to do about it?" I say to her, again, "They are not my kids." The woman basically repeats herself, and she says, "Well, I've seen them on several occasions. Besides, those kids should not be at the park by themselves. You need to do something." I just stare at her blankly, realizing in my sleepy state that she's a horrible helicopter mom. And I know for a fact that she's never gonna get off my porch or shut up. So I say, "Okay, thank you for letting me know." I then very gently close the door, which was my mistake. The woman immediately starts sputtering and yelling, saying, "Are you slamming the door in my face? That's attempted assault, you know. How dare you slam the door in my face? How rude. Open this door right now and talk to me." The yelling just continues, and I decide this lady has lost her mind. So I decide to go out my back door, leaving her yelling on my front porch. I race across the street to the park. I see my kids and their blonde friends, and I tell them to look both ways. I then ask my kids to come home because I'm afraid crazy Karen's gonna show up with her jogging stroller and harass them. As we're heading home, I run into said crazy lady, barreling down the sidewalk towards the park. And she says, "How dare you slam the door on me? You're lucky I won't hit you in front of your kids. You are a very rude, horrible person." I then tell her while cutting across my backyard, "Listen, lady. There's no need to get hostile and threaten me. Those weren't my kids. I'm not their guardian. What more do you want from me? I didn't mean to slam the door on you or be rude, but you woke me up to complain about kids that aren't even mine." And this is the absurd response I got. She says, "Well, you don't need to be sleeping when your kids are at the park. What if someone came along and kidnapped them? You need to parent better." She then stomped off to spread her joy elsewhere, and I wish the story ends there. I heard from other neighbors that she's talking trash about us. She's a lovely gem. Thank goodness she's not my direct next-door neighbor. Guys, what an encounter that was. And knowing that she's like 7 doors down from OP and that kind of person, oh frickin' boy, I wish you the best. Nothing like living that close to a mega Karen, hey? And seriously, I can only imagine what she'd be like if she encountered the real parents of those kids. Like, is she gonna hit them or something? With all that said though, if she's that concerned, why didn't she tell those kids herself, right? And this person's comment made me laugh. This person says, "That's the kind of parent that gets a full 8-hour sleep because she pays somebody else to look after her kids and then complains it's so hard to care for children." I would not be surprised. In my area, we have a community garden that's run by volunteers, including me. It's standard community garden rules. At the start of the season, you get an assigned plot and pay, and then you plant things there and take care of your garden area. If you don't plant or don't care for your plot, you lose it to the next person on the waiting list. It's the first thing of its kind in our area, and there is a pretty long wait list. Now, because our garden's run by unpaid volunteers, we've been somewhat slow to contact people whose plots haven't been planted. We were almost 2 months into the season before I emailed the few people for the first time, and almost everyone responds immediately. There was just one empty plot that remained empty after a few weeks of emails. I actually called the number of the lady who the plot was assigned to, and I'll call the lady Karen. Now, Karen was shocked to hear that she was in danger of losing her plot, and she was furious. And I get it, maybe the emails weren't received, and one of us should have called right away. She then demanded to talk to the person in charge, and she kept asking about her vegetables and who was at fault for this negligence. I just apologized again, and I let her know that she needs to come and plant soon or give the plot up. I then got off the phone as quickly as possible because she kept screaming at me and I didn't want to deal with her. I had the pleasure of meeting Karen the following weekend when I was at the garden with my 2 kids. The woman marches over to me with no introduction, and she immediately starts in again about the negligence and how we could be so unprofessional and where were her damn vegetables. The woman was screaming at me in front of my kids. She was puffy and angry and very, very rude. She wouldn't let me finish a sentence, and she was trying to tell me that she was going to get me fired from my volunteer garden position. I was trying to calm her down, but she wouldn't let me get a few words in before she interrupted me. Finally, to get her away from my kids, I said, "Let's go see your plot." So we walked to the area where her plot was, and it was very clear that it was the only neglected plot in the whole garden. The other plots have many plants growing big. You can see peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers all over the place, and a huge variety of greens and herbs. Karen's plot is dirt and weeds. She basically stops dead in her tracks. She sputters a bit, and then her whole tone changes. She went from being angry to wailing and crying, saying, "How could we do this to her? How could we treat her like this? What did she do to us? Was it because she was new in the neighborhood? Poor her. She deserved better." Meanwhile, I couldn't get a word in edgewise. She kept saying, "What about my vegetables? I need to eat vegetables this year. I really need my vegetables." The woman gets a little hysterical, and she starts to point out plots that are grown and have vegetables and demanding those. She even went as far as to try to grab a green tomato from the neighboring plot, but her heel slipped and she almost fell. This set her off even more, and she's making quite a show that others in the garden come to check on her. As she wails on, I suddenly realize what's happening. Karen thought the community garden meant that we were going to garden for her, and her fee at the start of the year was for us to plant her vegetables and care for her plot and harvest her vegetables for her. She's been sitting at home this whole time expecting vegetable deliveries. Now, I should have figured it out sooner, but all I wanted to do was to not deal with her. So I wasn't paying much attention to her as I should have. Also, the garden rules are pretty clear when she paid and signed an agreement. I explained it as nicely as I could to Karen, that these plots are for her to plant and grow. Her small fee only covers the cost of the land and the irrigation system. If she wants vegetables she's been demanding, she needs to plant them and care for them. It's her job, not ours. She, of course, gets angry again, how nobody told her. She then demands to be compensated and to get some vegetables for this hassle. I just let her know that there's some money left, and if she wants her fee back, we'll give it to her and give the plot to the next person on the waiting list. She then yells at me saying, "That won't be necessary," which was funny because it was a polite sentence, but she said it in the rudest way possible. She then stomps out of the gate and away. The next weekend, I go to the garden and surprise, her plot is planted and it looks absolutely great. She has a good variety and things are done neatly, and there's little paver stones to walk on and tons of veggies. It turns out she hired a professional gardener to do her community garden plot and to deliver the vegetables to her. I'm just so happy to not have to see Karen ever again. Okay, I'm not gonna lie guys, Karen hiring a professional gardener to plant and deliver her veggies, that is an impressive power move right there. No, keep my plot. There's nothing a few $100s can't fix. I just can't imagine it being cheaper than going to a farmer's market. But freaking hilarious post though, guys. The self-entitlement is amazing, isn't it? Karen thinking that a community garden means the community will serve her. Ain't that something? Okay, so I'm starting to believe that the younger the people are, at least from my point of view, the more entitled some become. I don't know. With that said, I'm a retired 70-year-old IT guy who still keeps tabs with his old workplace, simply because I really enjoyed working there, and there was a solid mutual respect between the owners and the staff. So I basically told them that while I am retired, I would not mind lending a helping hand every once in a while, should the need arise. However, don't overdo it. It keeps my retirement less boring, and again, I enjoy the work. So on Wednesday evening, my cell phone goes off. It's my former boss, who was very apologetic, but they had a major issue and asked me for help. One of their more specific clients had called out for help because their automated inventory system had stopped working. They could cope, but it was still a major problem because this was costing them big money. I won't bore you with the details of my job, but the gist of it is, the client was using our older automated inventory system, which was co-developed by yours truly. Older equals less efficient and sometimes becomes obsolete as time goes on. All you need to know. Basically, their company was ancient history at work. My company had moved on towards other more effective and more efficient solutions. Anyways, that particular client was still using Windows XP because they reasoned, why spend so much money on upgrades when everything works fine? Well, eventually my workplace stopped supporting the old version because, again, time passes on and things change. So the client calls my former company because their main inventory server running Windows XP stopped working, and they were somewhat desperate because all their usual hardware providers told them, you need to upgrade to Windows 10. But that left them with the main question, will this software work? And just for the record, they got multiple offers to help with the transition from us in the past. But the owner was cheap. He kept saying, but it still works. That's not needed. As such, I got contracted, and I asked if I'd be willing to go there to see what could be done. So I dress up and head over there to see what I can do, to identify and maybe fix the problem. I arrive and talk a bit about the whole situation. And the manager explains that the main issue is that the XP server doesn't seem capable to contact anything else on the network anymore. So here I was, in front of a somewhat disassembled computer, with my earbuds in, talking back and forth while my phone was lying on the table next to me. And here's some context. I'm the only one wearing a suit around here, and I can't help be certain that this is what started the whole thing. My talk with my boss had just ended on the phone, and that's when I encounter the entitled CEO. The next moment, somebody wearing a suit enters the room, and he's immediately greeted by the manager, who also showed me around. And this is when I suddenly hear it. I hear, hey, you, support guy, get me a coffee, will you? I look up to see the guy, who looked to be in his 30s, looking at me with expectation. The manager, hearing that, immediately seems to recognize what's going on. He responds, I'll get you a coffee. I'm actually on my way. But at that moment, he stopped. The CEO tells him, no, I want him to do it. And this is when I say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm busy and I don't work here. The guy retorts with an obvious smug look on his face, what? It was then I knew this wasn't going to end well, and you know what, I couldn't care less either. I tell him it's not my job, and that's no way to talk to someone whom you've never met. Why not get it yourself? I respond while also starting to round a few things up. I was definitely going to push this, but I wasn't going to blow up the whole project over it either. As I expected, he says, I'm the boss. When I say I want you to make me a coffee, you make me a coffee. Understand? The idiot even slapped the table to get his point across. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, game on. So I chuckled and said, you're not my boss, so go get your own coffee, thank you. Now, the guy obviously didn't appreciate somebody talking back to him like this. The manager tried to intervene, but after a bit more talking back and forth, I was told, I'm the boss around here, you stupid idiot. Now either get me my coffee, or you can piss off and get the F out of my company. So I say, okay, suits me just fine. Can you say it one more time, that you demand me to leave? The guy called me an effing idiot again, and he told me to get the F out again. So with that, I just packed up my stuff. I say to the manager, thank you, and good luck with your broken inventory system. Have a great weekend. That's when I make my way to the door, and I hear, wait, what? The manager goes, yeah, he's the contractor he was fixing our inventory system. The company told me that since he developed the software, he's the only one who still knows how to... And that's when the door to the office room closes, and that's all I heard. I got into the elevator, and much to my surprise, I met with a red, out-of-breath CEO, who's looking very apologetic as soon as I exit. The moment I see him, I tell him, you'll have to make a new appointment. The guy then starts down-talking the whole thing, saying he was joking, that it's something he does with new guys, etc., without even bothering to say the magic word. And seriously, had he apologized right then and there, I might have gone back to work, but no. So I reach the exit, turn around to face him, and I tell him once again, I'm sorry, this effing idiot is doing exactly what you wanted me to do. I'm leaving your company. And with that, I left. Outside, I immediately called the boss, who was in full support of my actions, and he agreed. He said they can make a new appointment. And this is going to be interesting because, again, I no longer work for my company and I have no obligations. I'm retired and I volunteered to help out that one day, and I'll take some time to think about when I want to come next. It could be next Friday, could be the following week, could be never. I hope you enjoyed my post. Honestly, I hope OP never went back. Just let that company continue to lose revenue and say it's all the CEO's fault. Consider all that lost revenue the a-hole tax. But holy moly, some people need to learn a lesson on how to talk to others. Like, get off your high horse. Being a CEO doesn't give you the pass to act like an a-hole to others. And again, honestly, I hope OP doesn't go back to fix their issue, make them lose even more revenue to really drive the lesson in. I just love the fact that there wasn't a damn thing the CEO could do about it because OP held all the knowledge. So I've had a few stories of accidental I don't work here's from when I worked 2 jobs in the same strip mall. But the most ridiculous was when I came face to face with a male Karen in the wild. At the time, one of my job's uniforms was a green polo with the company name on it. I had to run to the hardware store right after my shift, and I thought I would have no issues. Their uniform was casual clothes and jeans with a green apron. I was looking down at my phone, pushing my cart, when I accidentally cart bumped someone. The guy was also looking down at his phone, and I just smiled and went on my way. And I thought that would be the end of it. So after rounding a few aisles, I noticed that this guy has been keeping a close distance to me with his cart, but he still hasn't said anything to me. I'm also a real introvert, so I was fine with avoiding confrontation with people. Finally, after walking for like 10 minutes behind me, the guy shouts, "Hey, you! I need help." To which I say, "I'm sorry, my dude. I actually don't work here. I'm sure somebody's right around here, though." The guy replies, "No, you need to help me. I've been following you for so long now, and you haven't even asked if I needed help once." Now, of course, I was really confused. Like, there was no way he thought I worked there because I'm wearing different clothes. Also, I had been in the store for maybe 10 minutes, and usually I'd be okay with helping people. But at this point, I had to go to my second job. So I say, "I'm sorry, dude. I'm really running late. I think there's a customer service desk up front if you want to ask them." To which he replies, "No, I've been waiting for you. You can help me." Now at this point, I was creeped out, thinking the guy had stalked me for my phone number or something. So I just kept walking to the front. When I made it to the registers, of course Chad had followed me, screaming for a manager. When a manager arrived, they asked him what was going on, and he said, "Your employee refused to help me, and she is so unprofessional. She keeps calling me dude." It was at this point I put the pieces together, and I realized that this guy thought I worked there. So me and the manager both look at each other, and I say to him, "I don't work here, dude." And he says, "There she goes with the dude again. Are you going to let her talk to me this way?" I just look down at my uniform and I point to the company name on my shirt. I ask him, "Can you read? Because if you can clearly see that my shirt doesn't say this hardware store name on it." The manager just apologizes to me and steps between me and Chad, because at this point, Chad looks like he's gonna throw a punch. And just for reference, I'm a 5'2" girl and Chad's a pretty big man. The manager's trying to calm him down at this point, but he won't take any answer. He keeps saying, "No, I want her to help me. She ignored me the whole time like the entitled little bitch she is." So yeah, at this point I was running late for work, but I decided to stick around a bit to see what the fuss was about and what he needed. So I finally asked him, "What is it that you need anyway?" He then said, "What aisle are the hammers in?" And yes, this full-grown man decided to follow and harass some girl for 15 minutes instead of finding a real employee because he thought I worked there and was rude to him. The manager just whisked him away to the hammers, and I finished my purchase after that. About a month later, I'm at my job, which is in the same parking lot as this hardware store, when I hear a voice that sounded very familiar saying, "Hey, you." And I notice it's my good friend Chad at my actual job. I just put on the biggest grin I had, and I asked, "I see you need another hammer, huh? Well, we only have sandwiches here." I've never seen a person turn so red in my life. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /EntitledPeople episode, where entitled Karens are getting carted off to jail once again. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.